how long and how much did it hurt with that blackout tattoo?
I think it was like 72 hours total. I couldn't bend my arms for like almost a week.
Rock, metal, prog, and everything in between. Welcome to this episode of Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. Don't forget to follow the audio-only Talkin' Rock podcast on all podcast platforms. And now, it's time for today's conversation. Here's Meltdown.
What's going on?
I see it's definitely not warm there.
Yeah, I was just talking about that with your assistant there beforehand. Yeah, it's been a little bit chilly here in Detroit. You know, I just brought this up to somebody the other day. Miles Kennedy was in town, and I was talking to Tim, his manager, who manages Creed and stuff. You probably know Tim.
Yeah, I know Tim.
Yeah, and anyways, I'm like, I don't know why bands would tour in the Midwest and Canada in the middle of winter, but they do.
We did. It was we were either running from a blizzard or chasing one. It was brutal. And I asked the same question. I'm like, why are we doing this? And furthermore, shocked that people were coming out to it. But we're grateful for that.
Well, I think he had a point. He says, yeah, well, you know, people are kind of, they're kind of a little bit captive in the wintertime. It's like, there's not much to do. So I do the show. And I kind of understand that. Ironically enough, there's a lot of tours that are coming here through the summertime, playing like the big arena downtown. And I'm not a fan of being inside during the summertime, maybe because we're cooped up for 5 or 6 months, you know?
Yeah.
But you're not playing here anytime soon, I don't think. You're not playing here on March 10th with Disturbed and 3 Days Grace, which is my birthday. I was kind of bummed out to see that you weren't going to be here to celebrate.
Oh, yeah. We're on the second leg with Nothing More.
Yeah, that's great. So you're down in Nashville right now, aren't you?
Yeah. Out here, and been working on part 2.
I was going to say, so where's that stand?
I've spent the last couple weeks finishing up vocals in the studio, and we're getting close. We're getting close. I would like to think that it's coming out this year. That would be the goal. I don't have a date in mind yet, but I would love to see that.
Now, when you're writing stuff, I don't even know how to phrase it. When you're writing stuff, is there some stuff that you may write sometimes where you say, no, this is too poppy, this is too this is too that, I wanted a little bit harder, a little bit heavier? How does the process work for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's certainly a few turds in the pile, you know. Like we'll have a few ideas that we start, and you know, we'll live with the chorus overnight or over the weekend, and we'll come back to it, and we'll either be stoked about it or we'll be like, this ain't working, man. And it's like it's like spaghetti, man. We throw it against the wall and see what sticks, and see how it feels against the other half, and see if it feels like we're thematically in the same kind of, you know, tone. And I think naturally this second half has come out. In some ways, it's even darker than the first half, and in other ways, there's a little more hope on this half than the first half. So, yeah, man, it goes through a lot. You know, between myself, Scott Stevens, and Marty Fredrickson, we're very much in tune with what we're trying to accomplish here, and good at self-editing and knowing when maybe this just doesn't work, or maybe we're trying to force this, or maybe this just, you know, seems a little too contrived, or like we're forcing the issue here and we're not really saying anything. And then there's other times where it just feels like it just lands. And so we finally finished the 6th song recently, so we're really pumped about it, and very excited to get something out before the, you know, hopefully by summertime or after the summer, to have at least a first single from it.
Yeah, we'll get back to Scott Stevens here in a second, but the latest single, "The Dam," is out right now with this video, which is something like out of Dune. It seems like.
Yeah,
it's pretty epic.
I appreciate it, man. It was, I like to bring in some of my cinematic influences into the videos, and it was definitely a little Mad Max inspired, with the war paint and the setting, and it was a lot of fun. Basically, I come up with this concept visually of what, but there's no story, and I pitched it to the director Jensen Noen, who's incredible. He's the best out there doing these type of videos, and he came. We kind of went back and forth with like different concepts, and it basically ended. The one we kind of settled on or agreed upon ended the same way that the other two ended. I die, and that's the common thread between all of these videos.
Yeah, I saw. That's funny. Yeah, you just mentioned Scott Stevens. I texted him yesterday. And I'm like, hey, I'm talking to Daughtry. Give me something to talk to him about. He goes, let me think about that. And that's the last I heard from him. So what's it like working with Scott?
that is how it's like working with Scott. Hey, let me get back to you in like 5 minutes. And, he doesn't know how to count. I don't know. But no, he's great, man. We've become really close friends over the years, and outside of even working together. So I feel like we really click in the studio, and he really gets my vision, and is really good at helping me kind of see that come to light, and cultivate those pieces and elements that make it what it is, and helps me sort through the puzzle that, sometimes I'll come in with an idea, or sometimes he'll come in with an idea, and with all of us together, it all just works.
Yeah, it's got to be this weird dichotomy, because it's like, obviously you've been around for a long time. People obviously know who you are. You want to drive in your lane, and sometimes somebody else might want to tell you to drive in a different lane, but you're like, well, I can't really go in this lane because this is kind of where I am, but you kind of meet somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah, I think I will say that Scott and Marty are very good at knowing like the parameters. Like they're like, this feels a little too outside of what we can get away with, or this feels like we could dig in a little harder. And there are times where I'll have an idea, and they don't shy away from going, that's not that great, and vice versa, and I think we have that trust with each other, which is great to have, when you're collaborating with anyone, that you can be sure enough to know that that ain't for me, or that feels a little doesn't feel real to me. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like I can get away with that.
Yeah, I was going to say authentic. It has to be authentic.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the job of the producer, I guess, is to kind of pull that out of you, right?
Yeah, I think so. And that seems to be the case with this record. So yeah, I think it's working out well.
Is there any collaborations on this record, or are you collaborating with anybody else coming up anytime soon?
I don't have any on this record as of right now. Anything could change between now and time of release, but we do have something with another band coming out that I can't really say anything about, but there's something coming.
Gotcha. All right. Hey, listen, I talked to Hardy about this, and I'll ask you the same question. How has the rock world treated you? You're going on some of these festivals, you got rock radio and the whole thing. Now that you've been in it for a little while, how's the rock world treated you?
With open arms. It's been incredible to feel genuinely embraced by the community. To have bands like Disturbed and Creed and Nothing More, embrace you and unapologetically, even. So and we've noticed that with every festival we've been on. You know, hanging out with, you know, Korn side stage and being welcomed into their camp to watch their set. And yeah, it's incredible. I couldn't have asked for a better reception.
Yeah. Yeah. When I got on the phone or when I got on the Zoom the other day with Hardy, his girl said, yeah, this is for rock radio. And I forgot. It's like, yeah, because he lives in the country world, you know, and then
Yeah, yeah.
goes into the rock world. And so I was just curious if he pretty much said the same thing as well. It seems like the rock world is pretty welcoming. I've never heard anyone say a bad word about you in the rock world.
I feel like the artists are probably more welcoming than some of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fans can be a little gatekeepery, you know, if they're like into this band, you know, that and you're on the same bill and it doesn't quite, you know, align with how they, you know, the bands that they're into, they may have something to say, but it's never the bands. It's never the, you know, the other artists. It's usually certain fan bases.
And I suppose growing up as a rock fan, you could probably see yourself in that camp as well, perhaps, right?
What's that?
Like you know, you want to be the gatekeeper to rock.
No, yeah, I mean, I've never been too precious about it in
Okay.
regards to like, oh, well, you know, we can't tour with this band because they're not, you know, I feel like some fans, you know, at festivals will be like, well, they're not heavy enough for me or whatever, you know, or they'll be like, why the fuck are they on that bill? That's so weird, you know. But it's never the bands. It's always, you know, somebody in the fan base.
Yeah, I got you. Fair enough. So last year, the thing with your 5 records that you couldn't live without, and I noticed that 4 of them came out in kind of the same time in the early '90s. That really shaped and influenced you, didn't it?
Yeah, I think those were definitely some of the records that made me really want to do this, and so those are records that I tend to go back to often and listen to. And you know, there was a few other ones as well, but it's hard to really narrow that down under pressure. Be like, oh, those are the 5 that I remember off the top of my head, you know. But yeah, I mean, if we're going off the rock path, you know, there's certainly other albums that were influential along the way. But I look at those 5 that I listed as like defining albums in my life that made me want to be a singer-songwriter.
Yeah, one of the records you mentioned was the Black record from Metallica. And a few minutes ago, we were just talking about producers and stuff. Bob Rock, you know, had a lot to play in that record, and of course,
Yeah.
as well.
I do think that that is, I might be in the unpopular opinion, but that is their magnum opus. I mean, that record, top to bottom, sonically, is just perfection. And those songs, those hooks, even the guitar solos have hooks. I just love that record so much.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird because it came out like a couple years after Dr. Feelgood, and of course Bob Rock had a lot to do with that, and that was maybe Motley's, you know, opus.
Yeah,
saying about.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I see that an article also mentioned about vinyl. And you say you don't collect much vinyl because you can't, you know, use it working out. Now, since I started with my Peloton a couple years ago, I used to buy records specifically just to work out, just heavy stuff, and put it in my area. So, how many records do you have?
I mean, we do have some vinyl. We have a good, you know, solid shelf of it. But I don't actively go out and get it, but I do enjoy I like having it. I like looking at the you know, the liner notes and the artwork, and I like it because the artwork is bigger. You know what I mean? And you get to, you know, hold that physical thing in hand. So I'm glad that we're finally doing vinyl now, because I do think that there's something really cool about it. Even if you do listen to your music primarily on streaming services or whatever, like I do, I still think it's really cool if I go into a record store and I see an album that I love, there's a good chance I'm taking it,
Now, the room that you're in right now is a little bit darker than the room I talked to you in before, but I don't see any superhero stuff anywhere. Or maybe I just can't see it. I don't.
It's the same room, but we ended up taking everything down to fix the walls a while back, and I haven't had a chance to redecorate here, so it's pretty boring. Those are the first things that went up. Those two plaques right there.
Yeah, the plaques. Yeah, you got to make sure the plaques get up, right?
Yeah. I've got so much shit that is in storage. I'm just like, maybe I'll just leave it off the wall for a minute.
Hey, by the way, how long and how much did it hurt with that blackout tattoo? I mean, that's incredible.
Extremely painful. It was 7 days of sessions with a day off here and there. So we did like 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off, and then one final day. And so I think it was like 72 hours total.
Wow.
Yeah.
I got one that took about 10, and I was like, that was 2 sittings, and I'm tapping out after the 6 hours. But man,
it was brutal. The swelling that took place was just, I couldn't bend my arms for like almost a week.
Man,
yeah.
You have to put the stuff all over your arms and everything, and
yeah, it was a brutal healing process, but I'm finally through it.
I bet you got to know your tattoo artist pretty well.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time together.
Well, listen, man, good luck with everything. Shock to the
Awesome.
System, of course, is out. Part 2 is coming out sometime this year. We'll see what happens. You said you're about 6 songs in or so. And maybe we'll see you here in Detroit sometime this year, although I don't think anything as of yet. But hopefully not anytime.
There's still time.
All right, man.
Still time to add something. I appreciate you, man. Always good to see you.
Can you got a pretty good sound there. Would you mind cutting an ID for me real fast?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, just your name. You'll listen to Meltdown on WRIF, and that's it.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Chris Daughtry here, and you're listening to my man Meltdown on WRIF.
Like a true pro.
All right, brother. Appreciate you, man. Always good to see you. Stay warm.
You too, man. Thanks, bro.
All right. Take care, man.